Hello everybody, it is Ebontis, and in this video I want to go over tips that I kind of wish I knew from level 1, because I've played about 60 hours of this and I've learned a lot. I definitely am not going to claim to know it all, but hopefully these tips steer your initial playthrough, because I know the game literally came out today for many of you. But I hope your first playthrough is a little smoother and just, some of these tips steer you in the right direction. So let's jump in. I have no idea how many it is, but I probably counted them up on the thumbnail, so here we go. The first one is your Archetype. Now, your first one, whichever you pick, is going to be one of the 4 starting ones, or Gunslinger. If you kind of pre-ordered and got that bonus, you can still get Gunslinger later on. But as you level up your Archetype, you're going to be, getting different skills and stuff like that. But the real customization comes when you get your second one. So when your character has a total of 10 trait points, and honestly, spend your trait points pretty frequently, because there's no reason not to. You'll be able to reset them later. It's not that expensive to reset, I'll be completely honest, and you should not be sitting on unspent trait points. But the idea is, when you get 10 of them, you also unlock your chance at your first, or basically your second Archetype. And that's going to come from a couple different places. You can get the initial starting ones, which are most of the early ones that you're going to get. The other Archetypes are pretty hard to find, specific tasks you got to go through, certain puzzles, and a lot of your vendors are going to actually have them for sale. So for example, if I come over here to the medic, and she has the medic pin. So if I buy the medic pin, and then I take that over to Wallace, he's going to turn that into something. It's probably a very, very similar looking pin, and then that's going to allow me to have the medic as a second Archetype. So once you get one of these things, you'll equip your second Archetype, and you're going to have all the benefits of the first one, and the only difference is you won't have the prime perk. So if you want a different prime perk, make the prime, make the prime Archetype give you your prime perk. So like this one, which started out at 50%, but when I upgraded it, it now regenerates 100% of max health when I die. So it's kind of a get out of jail free card once, but it only happens every 10 minutes. But for me, that's really nice to have as a solo player, paired with a dog who has a heal and is like a second target. This was kind of what I used to beat a lot of the game. Now, is it perfect in all situations? No, nothing is. But that second Archetype is a game changer, and you also notice your name will change. So it goes from Die Hard Bulldog to Bonded Bulldog. Or if I switch over to, say, like the Hunter, Bonded Predator. Or if I switch it, it's Dead to Rights Predator. So just have fun with the names, notice them up there. But the second Archetype is a massive game changer. So as soon as you get that 10 trait points and you've got it unlocked, go to one of your vendors. So you're going to have, like, the armor guy there's one of your vendors, but Cass, I know, has one. That guy's got one. That guy has one. And then also your weapons guy over here is going to have another one. Depending on which one you started with, they're going to have different ones, which will be looking for the item that is about 1,500 in cost. And those are going to be some of those items that are going to get you artifact unlocks. And those are going to be things where if you walk over to Wallace and it's the right one, you'll get it. If you want to know an exact guide for all of them, you can look one of those up, but get your second Archetype as early as you can. It's a game changer. So the next quick tip is going to be a real fast one. It's going to be your advanced stats. In the bottom left-hand corner of your main character screen, you'll be able to see an advanced stats. For me on mouse and keyboard, it's R. It's all the stuff on the left-hand side that you can see, from skill cooldown, critical damage, healing effectiveness. If you're a min-maxing nerd, this is the place for you. Now, the other thing this also shows is your power level. And it says a weighted average of your Archetype level, which is the sum of your 2 highest Archetypes. And then your weapon level, a weighted average of the highest level weapon for each slot. So I've got a plus 20, I've got a plus 15, and a plus 15. Again, the weighted average is leaning heavily into your primary weapon. And your power level is a weighted average for your Archetype level and your weapon level. And that calculates your world level, and that's what you're going to go into when you go exploring. So if I have a weapon this strong, but I take in weapons that are like level 1, and I'm wondering why I feel weaker, that's why. So if you are looking to upgrade weapons, and you're normally playing on like your normal build is working with like veteran difficulty, or even messing with something higher. If you're looking to level up weapons, kind of experiment, see which one you want to mess around with of stuff that you've acquired. Mess around on Survivor, it's going to be a lot easier to manage that as well. Now, the other thing here for advanced stats is your total Archetype level. So for any of the Archetypes that you have acquired, you're going to have, like, I've got 10, 10, I've got a 7 to 7, I've got a couple zeros, and there's still more that I don't have. But you'll notice it states, combined total of all Archetype levels increases the quality of dropped relic fragments. So your relic is going to have 3 slots on it. And you'll notice, like, ordinary ammo, currently it's dropping as +3. This one dropped as a +1. And if you're looking to upgrade your relic fragments, you're going to have to play a ton to get like the perfect ones upgraded a lot. Because you've just got to run around and find them all again. And there's probably a very specific like guide, wiki, whatever it is that may tell you exactly where they are. But you may be able to get one that gives you a decent shield amount. But if I wanted that to be better, the higher I get all my archetypes. So basically what I'm saying is it's advantageous when you get other archetypes to use them and level up as many of them as you can, because when your relic shards start dropping at much higher levels, they're going to be giving you a much bigger benefit, and you can really lean into certain types of builds, or you can mess with like gray health, which is a whole thing if you lean into a certain build. So just know that if you get, you know, in love with one archetype, but you want to go like explore other realms, turn it down to survivor, check out a couple other archetypes, mess with a couple weapons, and then you can really do your exploring that way. But it does make a difference with your advanced stats for both your power level for the world, which is typically like 1 above your power level, and then your archetype level for your relic fragments. So I wanted you guys to see that and also see where to find that. Now, the way you level up an archetype, very simple. Just use it as you kill enemies and do different things and accomplish mission or like side quests or dungeons or whatever. You'll get progress on this. But to level up your weapons, you're going to need currency. And you're going to find that currency in one of 2 ways. Scrap, which you'll find from everything. You can also get some of it from selling, but be careful what you sell, and I'll explain that. But the other one you'll find is iron, and it's all in different varieties. So it's going to take a little bit of scrap and regular iron for this one. I'm all the way up to 500 scrap and then hardened iron, which is the highest tier of iron that you can find. Now, when you're upgrading weapons, the normal weapons that you can buy or starter weapons are going to only require iron of whatever variety it needs and scrap. But if you get to some of the unique weapons, which you'll find a piece, then you'll go over to Ava over here. She's going to give you the option to buy the weapon, and these usually have like mods that are locked onto them, and they do some pretty crazy things. So depending on your build and stuff, they're kind of fun. But you'll notice they also take a separate currency called Luminite crystals. And Luminite crystals typically only drop from the elite guys that you're going to fight. So if you're going along through an area and you kill a bunch of normal guys, you're getting scrap, you're getting ammo, no big deal. Then you hear the music change, and you hear the big dude come marching through who's got like a whole different moveset. Those are the ones that they're going to drop the Luminite crystals. But you'll notice, even me, I'm like 60 hours in, I've been playing a lot recently, I have almost 20,000 scrap right now, but I can still go broke almost instantly if I want to. The Luminite crystals, I don't have a ton of those. I mean, I have enough to potentially like level up. Say this one's at level 9. If I wanted to go to level 10, the higher you go, the more Luminite crystals it's going to cost. Basically what I'm saying is, it is advantageous to find a couple of starter weapons that you like and enjoy using that are not going to cost you your Luminite crystals at first, because you're going to unlock so many crazy weapons later on. You may find something that you enjoy more, and the Luminite crystals are just hard to come by. Now, if you know you're going to spend like 100 hours in this game, which it's easy to do, by the way, if you're farming, leveling, and all that fun stuff, but your starter weapons are honestly going to work very well, depending on your playstyle. Like this thing I've got right here, my tech. I'm up to hardened iron, so I'm trying to take this from 15 to 16. But I mean, this thing sprays bullets, does damage, it's a good close range weapon. And then depending on what mod I put on there, I can put in some good work with this thing. And I pair it with my AR-47 that I've already maxed out to +20, which is the cap. Then I've done fairly well with just these basic weapons that I've got right here. But there are some bananas weapons that you can get. They are just more expensive to upgrade. So if you can, and if you're capable, go through the game, your first playthrough, your campaign, and when you level up and you're putting all of your currency, your iron and your scrap into one weapon, it's going to be more powerful. But the only thing I would say, make sure it fits your playstyle. Like if you start with I have a handler, so I have a dog. He's going to go in front of me. I'm going to play a little more ranged. So my AR-47 works a little better from range. The difference is, like, you may be playing a challenger and you may have a build that wants you to be closer. That's fine, you're going to start with a different weapon, but if you do need to buy a weapon, if you're like, I don't really love what I've got, come over to Brabus and buy one for 1,000 scrap. I wouldn't really worry about your melee. Whatever melee weapon you have, just stick with it. You're going to find some cooler ones that you can get anyway. Honestly, the starting melee weapon, it's not worth the money to spend on. As for the handguns, those are the ones where I would actually potentially say if you come across a cool weapon from a boss of some kind, because a lot of these, like, you got a handgun, I got a classic 6-shooter, I've got like 15 in the magazine for a repeater pistol, looks like an old Glock, and this is just like a little short revolver. They're not that exciting generally in the handgun department, and you have some very unique ones that drop from bosses. I will say, if you are going to experiment, that's probably where I would do the experimentation, because they're going to bring you different options. Like, I've got one that sprays poison, I've got this crossbow that does cool stuff, I've got a double barrel shotgun, for example. But you probably can get most of your starter long gun weapons to work for your subclass and get used to those. And then as you beat bosses and go through a full playthrough, then you'll mess with other stuff. So if you want to try a different primary weapon, try them here. Handguns, you know, if you get a unique boss drop, that'd be a good way to mess with those. Just know when it comes to upgrading, you do not want to spread it very thin. You want to focus onto one or two like weapons that you really want to focus in on. That way, the farther you get into the game, the higher power level you are, and the higher the difficulty of the game is kind of getting as you get farther into it, the stronger your weapons are. That allows you to take on the content much more readily. Now, the next thing is going to be armor. A lot of it is just going to be, how do you want to look? Do you want to look absolutely ridiculous, or do you want to look like your handler with a baseball cap? So that's part of it. The next thing is going to be your resistances. Now, if you're playing on Survivor, none of this is probably going to matter. If you're on Nightmare, if you're on Apocalypse, and every ounce of resistance matters depending on what boss or enemy type you're fighting, that's when this stuff is probably going to matter. But early on, the biggest thing you're going to be dealing with is trying to find a balance of what dodge you want. So if I'm light, my dodge is very springy. Like, the sucker moves. I have not been running light. I have been running normal. So when you're in the green category, you're at a medium dodge. Still a decent dodge, a little slower, a little less snappy. But if you're comfortable with one of those, you can experiment depending on what subclass you have. Like the Challenger actually has a perk that gives the weight bracket here, it bumps it up a little bit. So I can wear like much heavier armor than I normally would, get higher damage resistance, and depending on what you're wearing, I can go a little crazy with them trying to find something that's heavy. And I'm up here at 49 and I've still got a normal dodge, but my damage mitigation, a little bit more. So depending on your class, depending on what dodge you're comfortable with, I mean, you can go bonkers here, and you can go something really heavy. Now you're in a slow roll. Not going to be quite as speedy. You're going to have a different play style. But if you're up close and personal, and you know now I've got 161 armor and my damage mitigation went drastically higher, that's where you got to figure out what you're comfortable with. But just know armor at a lower difficulty, it's honestly going to be pick how you want to look. And then when you find what's comfortable for you, go from there. But if you're going into higher difficulty things, you want to pay attention to damage reduction and things like that. If you're taking hits, that could be something you may want to adjust. But that is the main point of armor. How do you look? And then how do you dodge? Now, this is a short tip, but I still want to point it out to you guys because there are a few quest weapons that you can get, especially one that you get very early on. Hint, hint. You can rotate these things, and there's a few that you can interact with. But all I can say is there's a few quest items, not a lot of them. There's about 2 that I've seen so far that you can do it with. One very early on, and one very creepy one that you can interact with, but you can get something out of them, help you with something. I don't want to spoil it, so if you want spoilers, go look up all the quest guide stuff you want to. But again, just letting you know, the interaction with the items, couple quest items, you might look a little closer at. Now, I don't want to spoil anything specifically in this video, but one thing I want to tell you is explore, and explore a lot. Now, I told you scrap is one of those things for currency. The more scrap you have, the better off you're going to be. You're going to find that in chests. You're going to find that from enemies. You're going to find it in a lot of places, but if you just literally try and go like straight up the middle, golden path, go directly to the story point, you know exactly where to go, you're going to miss a whole bunch of stuff. Side dungeons, which are going to be a whole different area. So you can see, like, notice how this is a square. This is a main path. Notice how it's square boxed off. If you see that that's what that looks like, that's part of your main story. If you see something that is rounded, that is a side path. But that honestly could be a dungeon, could have a side boss. They could drop a weapon, an armor, a set of armor. They could drop a crafting material that turns into one of those cool weapons, could turn into a mod. You could have rings back here that give you very specific buffs. So much stuff is back here. So these 2 side areas, they're not required. They could help you solve puzzles, all sorts of things. So, like, if I run straight up here and I don't, you know, check over here in the corner or check over here, I can always easily miss, like, chests that have things or enemies that I can fight or just gobs and gobs and gobs of things. This game is full of secrets, mysteries, and a whole bunch of stuff that if you don't explore, you won't find it. It's still a really fun game, even if you don't, but the more you explore and the more you experience in this game, the better it just keeps getting for me, because I am 50, 60 hours into this thing, and I still keep running into stuff that I haven't seen before because of the random generation of the worlds. You've got different stories, different side dungeons, different things that spawn that you may not happen to see, and then you can go back and turn on something like an adventure mode where you just play through like one area completely separate from your campaign. You can literally have both active. You can either go campaign or you go adventure mode. If you go adventure mode and you beat this zone, I can come back in this zone, re-roll it, and you're probably going to see something that's totally different. But you can explore everything again, maybe fight one of the same bosses, maybe fight 3 different bosses. It's going to look different. All of these things are cool. It's best way I can say it to you without giving a whole bunch away is, if you explore a lot, the game has a ton to offer, and it generally is going to reward you for exploring. And if nothing else, if you pick up something that you already got, or you fought a boss you already fought, you're going to be getting extra scrap, which, as I said, you can spend it until your heart's content, because it's very easy to go broke in this game on scrap. And the reason why I say scrap is so important, you've got relics. Well, you're going to have different relics that you can get, and they all heal you in a different way. Upgrading your weapons costs you scrap. You've also got the ability to, you know, buy anything from the vendors that you're going to be buying. And anytime you want to get like an archetype, well, I've got to buy the item from the vendor. Then I got to go to Wallace and buy the actual like conversion into an engram for the second one. Scrap is used for like everything is basically what I'm saying. So yeah, the exploration is not a bad thing, but also be smart in how you spend your scrap. Otherwise, you'll just be probably farming for more of it. But again, we all need more scrap. We just do. Now, when it comes to your inventory itself, as I said, I've played for like way too many hours and I'm still having fun with this game, but there are certain things that you're going to have in your inventory that you should not sell. So if you're a little broke on scrap and you want to sell an extra ammo box you found, or, you know, a curative thing, or a bandage, or, you know, a fairy needle, whatever, any of this consumable stuff up here, technically, sure, you can sell it. Concoctions are things that are going to be beneficial to you for certain builds, certain archetypes. That's a whole different thing. Things to be very, very weary of selling. Anything down here in the materials category. Simulacrum, extremely important for a lot of different things. Each world has about one of these. They're used to unlock more heals on your relic. They're also used to max out weapons. But also I've got stuff like a bloody steel splinter or a broken timepiece. I know both of these are used for mods. I know the cipher rod is used for a weapon. A lot of these things down in this category, they're either iron. Now, if you get to a point where you have enough iron where you don't need as much, that's fine. But generally, a lot of this stuff down here, please don't sell it for scrap, because you'll be getting rid of something most likely very unique, and it's going to be used for, you know, a very specific vendor, like the corrupted Lumite crystals. You're like, what are those for? Don't get rid of them. Luminite crystals, again, used for upgrading unique weapons, unlocking a mod, unlocking a weapon. All of these things are important, so please don't sell them. I mean, if you play through slowly, explore a decent amount, you're going to have scrap, but we're all generally broke, so I just want to make sure you guys know certain things in your inventory, especially if they're like 375 scrap or they're worth 750 scrap. Please don't sell those. They're very valuable. The next thing I want to mention to you guys is the puzzles in this game, the mysteries, the secrets that you're going to find. There are some puzzles where there could be a book in the room where if you read the book, it's got a very obvious set of instructions, or it's got a very kind of obvious set of instructions, or there's a symbol, or there's some bolded words, or whatever it may be, and that book is nearby to your interactions with this puzzle. On the other side, there could be an item from halfway across the zone that you're in that you need to interact with. So the best thing I can tell you is look around for a book, see if there's anything there. If you see an obvious clue or bolded words or very, you know, specific symbols that tie into something, you might be in the right direction. But also, there are pieces of the puzzles. Sometimes you may need to explore the world farther. Sometimes it could be in a different zone. There's something you need to bring back to a certain area. You may just need to come at the whole, like, section that you're at from a different direction, because maybe what you need is behind a locked door. All I'm saying is the puzzles are very cool, and the game is not going to handhold you at all, but I do want you to know that exploring these puzzles is generally very cool, and then it's either going to be unique things that are going to unlock more customization, whether it's rings, a weapon. There's some cool puzzles in here, and honestly, part of the fun was just solving them. So I don't want to spoil any of them for you guys, but I just wanted to give you an idea. Sometimes there's a book on the ground, sometimes it could be a part halfway across the zone. If you want to look some stuff up, there's a lot of guides out there, but if you want to solve it on your own, that kind of gives you the spectrum of where things could be. When it comes to your rings and your amulets, you have a lot of these things. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get a full page of amulets, but I'm sure I haven't seen them all. But especially when it comes to rings, as I said, I've explored a lot, and I still probably have not found them all. But one thing you can do, which I didn't know for a very long time, is if you go to a ring, you can hit favorite, which is F, and you'll put a little star in the bottom corner, and it's going to basically prioritize those to the top. So there are certain ones, like one prevents the curse blight, one of them prevents the root rot blight. This one will give me 2 stacks of bulwark if I get low on health, and bulwark is like 15% damage reduction. These are ones that, depending on my build, what I'm doing, but if I know I'm going into a certain area and I'm like, hey, I can swap this one out, I can do it quickly because I know, like root rot or curse, depending on if there's certain things that I know I'm going to be fighting, I know that they're going to be quick switches and I know where to find them. So favorite a couple rings that you like using, and that way they're towards the top. I mean, read through, you could find a couple different rings that do a whole bunch of crazy stuff, but the favorites will help you find ones, especially like the blights. Like if I'm going into an area and I need to put something on that's going to help me with curse, at least I know I don't have to search through and try and read every single one of them. Favorite button does you wonders, promise. Another couple basic things, don't forget you can crouch. I know that seems obvious, but I was playing with somebody who didn't know that for a little while, so you can crouch, so look at the keybind. And also your flashlight. There are some areas that are very dark. Your flashlight is going to be very beneficial in things like sewers and tunnels and stuff like that, so make sure you know how to turn on your flashlight as well. It's quite beneficial for certain areas. Final thing you can do is ping an area. So I can ping the ground right over there. And it's going to help you with your team. So that's something that's actually really, really helpful depending on what you're doing. Like it's having issues pinging out of this little zone here. But you can even ping a specific enemy. And then if I look on the map, you can actually see that enemy. Now, I don't know if it's going to move with him. Let's see if it moves. And you can actually watch that enemy move. Now, it doesn't last forever. But that's the nice thing about a ping is if you're playing together, or if you're like, I need to go that direction. What is that direction? And then you can look at, like if you're in here and you're like, I want to make sure I go that direction. Let me turn that way, ping it, and make sure I'm looking the right direction. So just the ping minus G on mouse and keyboard. Again, check your control input, whatever it may be, but especially for group play, pings are going to be beneficial. So try and use those where you can. Can be very, very helpful for everybody to know where you're at, where you're going, and if you ping, it does show up on the map, which is very beneficial. The final thing I want to talk about is going to be your mods and mutators. Like, as I said, for my handler, I went through with my AR-47 and my tech pistol for a very long time. Now, I did get the cube gun, which you'll probably get somewhat early on. It's a pretty cool thing. It's got, like, infinite ammo. You got to work with more of an overheat situation. Very unique weapon for a handgun. Does a lot of cool stuff. But your normal weapons can still have a lot of functionality because you're going to find mods that do pretty crazy things. On this one, for example, I've imbued the ammunition with fire and increases the range damage by 15% for 20 seconds. Shots also apply burning. So pretty much I've had my little machine pistol here, put burning on, and I can just spray it on a whole bunch of enemies and burn them, usually cook them down pretty quick. So mods do a lot. And then your mutators do a ton of stuff too, and there's even more of these that I know I haven't found. You can buy some from the crazy big, like, hunchback dude who calls you a Paxel Tech. He's from a different realm, I'm pretty sure. But these do different things too. Increase this weapon's reload by 4% for each enemy killed between reloads. It lasts 15 seconds, and it's a max of 5 stacks. So if you get a lot of kills, and you can get a 20% faster reload, you're back in the action quicker. And then you're able to upgrade these mutators. Actually, they just, you know, they're a currency that you're going to find slowly. But if you get one up to level 10, reloading at max stacks, so if you can actually get enough kills to get up to 5 stacks, increases range damage by 20% for 15 seconds. So if you're killing a bunch of small adds and you have a weapon that is slow to reload but has a ton of bullets, take like a giant machine gun, for example, this is going to work really well because you probably can get enough enemies killed with one magazine. Then if you reload at max stacks, you're going to increase your damage by 20% for 15 seconds, and you're able to take out probably the bigger guy in the area too. So certain weapons are going to have mutators that really change them up. So what I've got here is I've got my AR-47 with the Voltaic Rondure, which I'm probably mispronouncing. Launches a slow-moving orb that pulses every half a second. And I've also got ranged hits increase the next weak spot. So if it's a normal hit, not a critical, weak spot hit by about 10%. So if I've got a guy over here that I'm gonna like find and shoot at, if it's a normal shot, it's not gonna do as much. But those normal hits get all the way up there, and then if I get a critical, I know that critical is finally gonna land actually really well. So when that critical finally lands, I've got this as an option. Now there's my audio cue that a big guy's coming in. There's the big critical. Now I know there's a big guy coming somewhere. I gotta figure out where it's gonna be. Then I'm waiting to use my mod. So I've got this guy back here. So that thing's gonna electrify him for a while. And he's gonna be electrified quite well. And again, different mods or different mutators on a melee weapon are also gonna work extremely well. So that's why I'm like, this may be just an AR-47. That thing's still just out there like zapping people. And I mean, I've got another one that drops like this line of napalm, and I've got another one that's going like, you can have a normal weapon if you're worried about, but I want to experiment with the cool weapons. Mess with your mutators and your mods, and you can take a normal weapon to be much stronger. And that way, if you've leveled this weapon up to like, say, plus 10 or 11 or 12, and you find a cool mod, it changes up how you play with it until you get enough currency, so then you can switch over and mess with something else. That's all I'm saying. So like mods and mutators, game changers on weapons, find the ones you like. Those you can switch out all the time. Really cool stuff. The final thing I want to cover with you guys is adventure mode. So as you go through the campaign, you could start your campaign. I mean, you'll go through the basics, and then you're going to have any of a couple different starting zones. You're going to have a couple main points in the campaign. But as you work through your campaign, it'll be on a certain difficulty. I did a survivor difficulty. Now I'm doing a veteran difficulty playthrough. But you also have adventure mode, which is really, really nice to have, because what you can do is, say I was in Lonesome, which is that first area, this one, but maybe I want to re-roll it. And what that does is it basically re-rolls the world, and it's separate from your campaign. So I can re-roll this location, I can choose my difficulty, and then if I jump into it, then I know I'm going to start right here. And then it allows me to get a chance to experience typically the other main story arc, see if there's any other side dungeons, see if there's any other interactions that can happen. There are some very specific things that happen in very specific places, so you may need to do this quite a few times, and this is a way for you to, you know, hunt down specific items, go after certain things, experience different bosses, and this is a way. So now I'm in a Lonesome that I've never wandered around in, and it's all completely brand new, and it's just kind of a fun way to allow you to experience more of the game that has to offer, because honestly, there's so much that you won't see the first time. It's actually good to go back through an adventure mode, kind of do one of those on each of the realms, and then see how much you do. So if you go through a full campaign playthrough, and then you do an adventure realm on each zone, that's going to be at least a better way. You don't have to go through the full story arc and everything like that, but you can experience a lot more of the variety of the content that's out there. But I can tell you, even after doing all of that, you're still probably not going to have seen remotely all of it, but there's just so many little secrets too that you're like, did I go over here? Did I check this thing? Did I solve this crazy puzzle? This is a new puzzle. What is this? Like, all of that stuff is going to be there, and I think it's really cool that there's that much more variety to the game that you may not have seen. So just wanted to let you guys know that adventure mode, once you've beaten a zone, like for this one's Lonesome, once you've beaten that like campaign playthrough zone and you've like finished up that zone, you've gone to another one, you can boot up an adventure zone over and over and over for Lonesome, try and, you know, make sure you completely get everything out of there as many times as you need to. So you can bounce back and forth too. If you feel like the campaign's getting a little strong, maybe over leveled, go boot up, you know, the other one and see if you have better luck over in somewhere else that you're a little more comfortable with. So just wanted to say adventure modes are very cool. Definitely check them out. So I did want to give you a couple pointers on traits. Now, one, spend your trait points. Like when you're leveling up at first, you've got the basics of like max health and max stamina. Like level up the basic stuff that you have access to, because you should not have unspent trait points. It's also not that expensive once you like get higher up and you hit the cap of trait points and you're like, I want to go respec. It's going to cost you like 2 or 3 of these and some scrap, like maybe 1,000, and you can respec everything. So it's not that expensive. You don't want to do it like every hour, but if you have like a different build you want to lean into and experiment with, it's not going to be the end of the world. The other cool thing about traits is kinship is the trait I get from the handler. But if my handler gets up to level 10, it unlocks it as a permanent trait that I can have access to, even if I don't even have the handler equipped. So there are certain ones that you can actually get access to once you get to level 10. Like when I get my hunter up to level 10, my weapon range, I'll be able to lean into this if I really want to, and I can make sure my weapons have more range to them. The traits are also really crazy. Like, you get your basics of like health and stamina, but later on, if you get a ring that gives you health and a ring that gives you stamina, well, I don't need like, you know, 30 stamina and 30 health. Maybe I'm more comfortable at the game. I've got better damage resistance from armor. I've got a completely different playstyle I'm going to. Maybe I've got a summoner playstyle, so I've got Blood Bond and I've got Rugged for summons and stuff like that. Let's just say the dog is not the only thing that can be hanging out with you. The gray health regeneration. Well, that's another one that you can get to where your gray health is like when you take damage, half of it's still grayed out, and you can earn some of that back over time. Here you go. You know, weapon spread and recoil. If you want to be accurate with your long weapons, this could be something you look into. AoE size. I have a mod that does this like pulse for like 9 meters, but if that could be like 13.5 instead of 9, that would be a drastic difference on how big of an area that thing can hit. So if I have a mod that I really love using, I've got like mod generation, you know, to the max over here, and all of a sudden my AoE abilities are up really frequently, that's a completely different build, and maybe I don't care about health and stuff as much because I'm leaning into it in a different way. So at first, spend your points on the basic stuff, and then when you kind of figure out where you want to take a build, come back here, reset your points, try one out. As I said, I wouldn't reset every hour, but if you reset like, you know, every so often to see if a build really gets to be awesome, it's worth experimenting because it's not that expensive to do it. So that pretty much wraps up a lot of tips that I can think of, at least right now, without spoiling too much, because I do want you guys to experience as much of this as you can without me like ruining a lot of the surprises. If you guys are interested in things like guides on specific bosses or certain puzzle situations, like how to solve those, I know there are other guides out there. If you'd like to see those from me, maybe it's something where I put like, you know, a main guide to all the bosses in a certain area. I don't know. Just let me know what you guys else would be looking for about this game. You guys know I typically cover Destiny 2, and we'll still be doing a lot of that, but just having a lot of fun with this right now and trying to share what I can with others to make your experience even better. Remnant 2 is an awesome game. If you haven't seen it, pick it up. It's officially out for everybody today. So if you enjoyed the video, drop a like below, leave a comment if you got questions, thoughts, opinions about anything I put in here. Maybe I missed a major tip or something. Throw that in the comment, and maybe there's, you know, a pinned comment that I put all the good ones together. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit the alert bell, and I hope to see you in a future video. Have a good one, and good luck exploring. It's fantastic in here. Have fun.